Something like an interrogation. A blonde girl is sitting on a chair. She thinks she should talk and what she shouldn't. In the end, the blonde decides to tell the truth. The person sitting across from the girl asks her, "Are you good at lying?" but denies it. The ship model standing on the table sways slightly. Storm outside the window. The sea is especially fierce today. Swimming in such weather is madness. But it seems the captain of the ship doesn't think so. The man interrogating the blonde also does not pay attention to the weather. He touches a piece of paper with a pen, on which it is written that the blonde is a real master of lies. She was a very skilled trickster. The girl says innocently to these accusations, "I have no idea what it means." The man's face looks tired. The blonde smiles. "I never lied." It should be said that she is quite beautiful. Long hair, light eyebrows, light blue eyes. True, her clothes leave much to be desired. Her light dress is completely dirty. The girl looks into the man's eyes and hums softly. A huge white ship balances on the waves. He is heading for the island of Montevichas. The man questions the blonde in disbelief. "You never lied, did you?" The smile does not leave the girl's face. It seems that the blonde is not going to answer. The man continues in a serious tone. "You repeated these words even during the second sentence." The girl leans forward. "Of course, although the judge didn't even try to swallow it." The man returns to the papers. "And during the arrest, she repeated it." The blonde smiles even wider, showing white teeth. "It hurts me." The man, a green-eyed brunette, silently looks at the blonde. He understands that this is empty talk. The girl is unlikely to tell him anything useful now. There is nothing to waste time. The man picks up a pen. "Name." He is about to fill out the form on the case of the con artist sitting in front of him. The girl's eyes twinkle. What is this question for? She mocks her husband. Bilyavka mentally turns to him. "You're definitely not from a poor region. Don't you know my name?" The man calmly replies that the procedure requires it. The blonde says, "Rosenwalker." The dark-haired man is somewhat surprised. The document has a different name. The girl laughs. She says the name she said is correct. The dark-haired man leans back in his chair. "I don't care about your real name." He narrows his eyes. "I need you to say the name on this document for my pet with your mouth." The girl frowns. "Rosen? Chaos." Memories of Rosen. When the plane flew by, postcards with his image fell from the sky like rain. And at the moment when his voice, which was broadcast on the radio, sounded in the same sky, people raised their heads as if bewitched. The authorities knew very well how easy it was to actually charm a person. The young and noble pilot became a great tool. In the anxiety and despair that the war brought with it, the people needed Ian Connor, a hero who inspired hope for victory and a bright future in people's hearts. The blonde also loved the pilot very much. She, then still a very naive young girl, believed that he would save their lives. The girl watched his plane with her mouth open. She emerges from the memories. The blonde opens her eyes wide. Accusations? The girl clutches her dirty dress with her iron handcuffed hands. Bilyavka confusedly asks, "What accusation is it about?" The dark-haired man calmly says, "The reason you're going to Monte Island, the worst prison in the world." The girl says that she has already run away, and twice more. It was because of her that the pride of the Imperial Army was crushed. The man asks the blonde why she was sentenced to prison. Rosen's eyes widen. "I'm innocent." The dark-haired man is skeptical of her words. "I repeat once again, but this is just a formality. I don't care about your opinion." The girl repeats, "I am innocent." The man directs his gaze to her case. Few criminals confess to their crimes. However, your stubbornness will not cancel your sentence. The blonde woman starts to get angry. And this does not diminish the truth of my innocence at all. The truth is higher than the statement. God knows and sees everything. You won't be able to deceive him. The man narrows his eyes. "I repeat, I am not interested in your opinion. I don't care about you at all. I just have to fill out these papers. Answer directly." The girl purses her lips. She thinks that the dark-haired man should answer her. Just like that, he definitely won't get off the hook. The knocking of someone's shoes is heard. The door to the office suddenly opens. A fair-haired man with blue eyes rushes in. He exclaims excitedly, "Commander!" A man notices a blonde and asks his boss, "What are you doing?" He does not really understand the question. As you can see, I am having a personal conversation with a criminal. The blonde scratched the back of his head. I know you're a straight-talking person, but why create unnecessary problems for yourself? Besides, only the worst criminals go to Monty Island. The fair-haired one looks at Rosen. And this time she's also famous. Suddenly, the fair-haired man exclaims in fright, "A witch from Al-Kafeza?" The girl smiles contemptuously. The fair-haired man turns to the commander. Why did you call such a dangerous criminal for a personal interview? The blonde starts to cry. The commander says that he does not consider her dangerous. The fair-haired man is desperately trying to prove the opposite to the commander. Even if she looks like an ordinary rag, but you can't lose your vigilance. He says that this girl is a criminal who escaped from Al-Kafez. The materials state that she killed her husband, Hindali Hawos, at the age of 17. The commander calmly says, "Bring in the criminal, Henry." The fair-haired man is in a hurry to carry out his boss's order. He roughly grabs the girl's hand. The man takes the blonde, who is trying to prove her innocence, out of the office. The girl, to put it mildly, is dissatisfied. Where is he pulling me? Henry growls at her. Move. But still, says the blonde in her mind, her eyes twinkling. Compared to the previous supervisors, these are gentlemen. Normally, I would have been kicked by now. However, this does not change the situation. They are criminals and supervisors. It's like a cat-and-mouse fight. The first has little chance of survival. She must be very careful. The girl understands that if she relaxes, she will be caught right away. Then everything will definitely be over. The handcuffs on the legs of the blonde make an unpleasant ringing. But she does not lose hope of escape. After all, finding various loopholes is her specialty. The girl looks at the commander's back. A bunch of keys hangs on his belt. This time the blonde will also manage. Under the deck of the ship is a whole palace with many passages and rooms. It is through these passages that Henry, the commander, and Rosen are now walking. The dark-haired one asks if the party is over. Henry snorts. Of course, you lead the witch of Al-Kafeza. How would we lead her through noble ladies and gentlemen? It even sounds funny. But the commander does not think so. And yet these ladies and gentlemen are now on the Vicious liner precisely for the purpose of a tour of the prison. I thought, on the contrary, they would be interested. The girl opens her eyes wide. The blonde ironically replies to the commander, "Well, you think so because you are unique, sir." Empty alcohol bottles are lying on the floor. That remained after the guests. A lot has changed since the war. Steamships originally intended for military support were converted into passenger ships after the end of the war. Liner Vicious also did not miss this fate. The steamship was once filled with wounded soldiers, gunpowder smoke, and the sounds of gunfire. As soon as the struggle ended and the threat to human life disappeared, the liner was quickly turned into a place for luxurious parties for the rich. And this rebuilt ship, which combines the bitterness of the past and the joy of the present, is now heading to the island of Monte, to the most terrible prison in the world. The girl is somewhat surprised. Monte Island is considered a rotten place. To save life, there is already an achievement, and tourists want to see the prisoners so much that they even swim with them. They sail on the same ship. You don't see something so mean and funny very often. The girl closes her eyes. She stinks a lot. The blonde talks about it. The commander replies that during the war they themselves did not look better. Henry is indignant. This is a completely different case. Blonde says they were scared during the fight and this witch is just a killer, who escaped from prison twice. The blonde can't stand it. How loud you are. The blonde can't believe she said that. What? But the captain does not allow the dispute to flare up. Henry, keep yourself in your hands. There's no point in wasting your nerves. The dark-haired man turns to the blonde. I apologize for the rudeness of my subject. The redhead keeps saying, Sir Connor, you really can't let your guard down. He notes that this woman may be a witch, but the commander ignores Henry's words. Follow me, I want to show something. The girl and the commander climb on deck. The ship rocks. The blonde woman grabs the iron handrail with her hand so as not to fall. The girl looks forward and opens her eyes wide. The night sea is very beautiful. The moon illuminating the water gives it a special charm and mystery. This is why it is worth riding steamboats. The girl who cannot take her eyes off the sea says to herself, and I had to become a world-famous criminal to see something like this. The blonde could not even think that she would see something so beautiful in her lifetime. The girl's thoughts are interrupted by the commander's voice. You said that you escaped from Al-Kafeza by doing an undercut. Bilyavka says that everything was like that. The man asks uncertainly, Did you really go over the cliff naked? The dark-haired man continues, People say you used magic. The girl opens her blue eyes wide again. The man asks her, Is it true? Is it just gossip? People often say things when they have nothing to do, but I have to know. Rosen understands his wariness. After all, the last successful escape from Al-Kafeza was managed by a witch 36 years ago. Therefore, when the press first learned about the escape of the blonde, people were sure that she was also a witch. People, by their nature, are afraid of things they cannot understand. These are times when science is highly valued, and magic, on the contrary, is despised. But traces of the past have not disappeared. Witches' survivors are hiding around the world. The blonde answered the man, somewhat annoyed. If I were a witch, would I be in this situation? But they wouldn't even be able to catch me. The girl rattles the handcuffs. And no one would be able to shackle me like this, I don't think so. That for a witch the mere presence on this ship is already nonsense? The redhead huffs. Sir, you better not believe her. Not a single true word comes out of her mouth. She is a skilled liar. You are familiar with her business. Henry says she's just pretending to be a victim, but she's not. The girl turns to the red-haired man. Hey! He stares at her. The blonde smiles slyly. It's time for you to breathe a sigh of relief. After all, if I were a real witch, I would have sewn your mouth shut a long time ago. The blonde leans towards the blonde, intending to say something to her. But the girl does not allow Henry to do this. I even went through the mana detection procedure. An evil light flashes in Rosen's eyes. What more evidence do you need, or... The military in this country are so stupid that they are unable to understand even such a simple fact? The fair-haired one grinds his teeth with rage. That's an abomination. A man swings, going to hit the blondes, but he is stopped by the stern voice of the commander. He seriously says, Take your hands off the criminal. Once again, you give free rein to your feelings and continue to riot. I will report to the management. Then you will have a hard time. The blonde is indignant but takes his hands away from the girl. The commander asks Henry in a tired voice, Bring what I asked for. Henry walks away. The dark-haired one turns his attention to the blonde again. Rosen Hauos. The girl stares at him. The commander calls her the most famous fugitive of the empire, the witch of Al-Kafeza. The blonde looks at the moon, trying to calm down. What the hell? What is it from? But the husband does not let her finish. Are you lying or telling the truth? I'm going to sneeze. The blonde is silent. The dark-haired man calmly continues. I want to remind you again of some obvious things. Nothing more. I hope you can hear me. The man puts his hands behind his back and leans forward. First, you are a convict who has received a sentence. You have been sentenced to life imprisonment in Monty Island prison. The dark-haired man does not take his eyes off Rosen all this time. Second, I was ordered to escort you to the island. Third, you are not the first to run for Al-Kafeza. He pauses for a second, then finishes. But no one has yet managed to escape Monty Island. The blonde opens her eyes wide. The girl lowers her eyes to the floor. The redhead says, I brought. A man puts an iron tray with red pieces of something on the deck. The blonde is surprised. Meat? She glares at the commander and mentally asks, Why? The dark-haired man silently approaches the tray and takes it in his hands. He puts his hand out to the side. Look carefully. It looks like he is going to throw the meat into the sea. Indeed, the bloody pieces slowly slide off the tray. The man flashes his green eyes. You will see now what a sea we sail. Pieces of meat fall into the water. Huge waves immediately rise, affecting the ship. The girl looks down with wide eyes. On the seaside, something huge rises to the surface. It grabs the meat with a loud, disgusting sound. Rosen is shocked. The fair-haired one notices this and with obvious mockery in his voice says, Watch carefully, witch. This sea is full of such monsters. A red stain spreads across the sea. Henry says that the girl simply has nowhere to escape from here. She is doomed. And the redhead thinks it's fair. The blonde purses her lips and says in her mind, Here, Grandpa, thus it is unlikely that I will be able to get out of here. At least alive, definitely not. Eh? The girl hears the jingle of keys and turns her head to the side. The captain says, If you want to be a snack for a monster, I advise you to get on a boat and go on an adventure. He approaches Rosen. Apparently, the man shakes his hand with the keys. You really want to get this? I guessed right away. The girl realizes that Ian Connor is not a gentleman at all. The man's eyes flash and he smiles triumphantly. I hope you've changed your mind now. Rosen Howos. But the blonde does not listen to the dark-haired man. The girl wonders why she didn't understand right away. That the warden cannot be a gentleman, even if he is a hero. The commander is the same person who saved people during the war. But now he is not at all like the smiling man from postcards, who was admired by millions. The blonde is saying something to the man. The girl squints and says politely, I don't know how he behaves with ordinary people, but it's different with me. Still, the girl looks sadly at such a beautiful and at the same time dangerous sea. I'm just a rat. A rat who underestimated the cunning and strength of a cat. Camera girl. The clinking of shackles is heard. A small lantern is the only source of light in this room, shaking like the ship itself from the waves. The blonde sits down on the floor and thinks, isn't there another way to escape? I always got out of such situations. How so? Her thoughts are again unceremoniously interrupted. Hey! The girl looks at the source of the voice. Interesting. Who will cling to her now? The blonde sees in front of her a woman as dirty as herself, with dark gray hair and very light, dull eyes. She asks Rosen, aren't you going to tell me something? The girl tiredly says, about what? The woman drops to the floor. Ian Connor, didn't you have a joint conversation with him? Rosen sighs in exasperation. Of course everyone wants to know about this handsome pilot. The girl looks at the bars. There was. The woman continues to ask, what did he say? The ship continues to rock on the waves. It looks like the weather has turned bad again. The clank of shackles. The girl says that Connor told her to forget about the escape and nothing else. The woman is surprised, but curiosity does not leave her. Rosen asks, what exactly do you want to hear from me? The woman smiles. The creaking of the stairs is heard. A few seconds later, a small, fair-haired girl with huge blue eyes looks into the ship's prison, but the prisoners do not notice her, yet. The woman asks Rosen, did he really not say anything else? The blonde arched an eyebrow. Maria, what do you want to hear? The woman puts her hand to her chin and twinkles her eyes. What? A young and pretty prisoner. I went to the room of the young and terribly attractive commander. Maria lightly nudges the girl with her elbow. I just can't control my wild imagination. Tell me everything in detail. The blonde thinks that the woman is being bullied. After all, now Rosen looks simply terrible. But no. The woman smiles predatorily. You're still the youngest here? So there was nothing between you? The girl sighs loudly. She exasperatedly says, how could Ian Connor do that to some rag? Maria narrows her eyes. I just had to pounce on him, like in Al-Kafiz. The girl puts her hand to her cheek and looks at the woman. Bilyavka understands what she is talking about, but now the problem is not only with the commander. Unfortunately, the sea is full of terrible monsters. If Rosen decides to jump into the water, the sea creatures will simply tear her apart like a piece of meat. And here her youth will only harm her. Monsters like to feast on fresh flesh. Maria says, and it doesn't matter. You. The girl opens her eyes wide as the woman squeezes her shoulder. Maria directs a serious look at the blonde and asks her, you're not going to give up, are you? I hope not. It's not your style. It is necessary to fight to the end. Mary of Al-Kafeza, a prisoner whose nickname the witch from Al-Kafez fits much more than Rosen. This woman has a rather interesting and dark history of imprisonment. If the guards ruled outside the cells, inside all the power belonged to Maria. Therefore, it cannot be said that this woman was doing very badly. She knew how to stand up for herself. If someone did not like Maria, he did not live to see the end of his sentence. The woman killed him with particular cruelty, both physically and mentally. The blonde again dives into his memories, but not about the clear sky and the glorious pilot, but about Al-Kafez. She remembers the time when she was brought to this gloomy place. Then Rosen already managed to become famous with one successful escape. Therefore, she was sure that she would be able to get out of Al-Kafesu as well. The girl tried to break the shackles. What she did not do, beat the wall with her hands, scraped the strong iron with an old spoon. Everything was in vain. Rosen couldn't free her hands. But she didn't stop trying. During the girl's next attempt to get rid of the shackles, Maria drew attention to her. "Hey, runaway!" Rosen shuddered. She turned her head to the side of the woman, but asked her, "Do you want to wake up all the guards?" Then the girl did not understand why Maria paid attention to her. Although knowing how she clung to the prisoners, it did not seem strange. The only thing that can be considered a miracle is the woman's smile. "Where did you get the spoon?" True, this smile was rather mocking than friendly. However, Maria at least did not lash out at the irritated girl. And this is already a success. Due to the fact that Rosen swore an oath to Maria, the prisoners, for whom the strict woman was the main one, treated the girl well. And her life in prison was quite peaceful. Then the girl didn't understand, that's the point, but now, Maria's voice and the ringing of the shackles make the sullen blonde come back to reality. "Answer!" Maria looks at the girl with wide-open eyes. "You're not going to, are you? Give up? After all that has happened, such a decision would be simply ridiculous." Bilyavka looks at the other prisoners. "They need my victory. They want me to make a show of crushing the pride of the Imperial Army." Their eyes say it. These unfortunates want for the girl to erase all traces and live a quiet life somewhere out there outside the Empire. Ideology, a kind of credo. The girl squeezes the woman's bony hand. "No, you should know perfectly well, Maria." The blonde shines with blue eyes. "I will not give up for anything, never." Maria smiles, this time sincerely in a good way. She tells the girl that this is a good and correct decision. Invincibility is the only way to survive in such conditions. The woman throws Rosen a cigarette. The girl is surprised. Maria offers the blonde to light a cigarette. The girl does not understand at all where she got it from. The clanking of the iron door is heard. Rosen raises a cigarette to his lips and says, "By the way, this commander is Ian Connor. Wasn't he a pilot first?" Rosen exhales acrid smoke. What did he forget here? This job doesn't even befit the Air Force. Relaxed by the cigarette smoke, Maria answers, "I don't know." The woman suggests that Ian may have been maimed in some way, which is why he was dismissed from the service. The girl thinks, but he looked normal. An image of a young captain appears in her imagination. The girl cannot imagine that someone so beautiful and perfect could be crippled. It is simply impossible. Maria notes, to become a cripple, it is not necessary to lose a limb. Bilyavka wonders what other disability the pilot might have. Maria smiles slyly and shows a sign with her thumb and forefinger. Rosen is shocked. "What? Is he? Don't be delusional." Maria laughs. "I don't care." She says that for them, the prisoners, it does not matter at all. They need to find a way to charm this man to get out. The girl sighs. She believes that it works only on stupid people. A famous pilot will definitely not be bought for this. Rosen's expression becomes focused. She thinks about what she should do. The girl scrolls through different escape options in her head. Suppose she could steal the keys, but will she be able to overcome such a dangerous sea on a simple boat? Bilyavka snorts skeptically. Of course not. The problem is not only with monsters, even if by some miracle they don't kill me, I'll die of exhaustion. But it doesn't look like the girl has any other way to get out of here. A strange sound, similar to a knock, pulls Rosen out of his thoughts. The girl shuddered and narrowed her eyes. The sound does not stop. Its source is a pink ball rolling on the floor. Rosen jumps up. "Enough distraction, quietly." The girl freezes as soon as she sees who is playing with the ball. Rosen even thinks she's hallucinating. The blonde opens her eyes wide. She is watching a fair-haired pretty girl throwing a ball. What is a child doing here? Rosen asks herself. Who even let this girl go to prison? The blonde is indignant. How did she come down here? Maria, not letting the cigarette out of her mouth, calmly answers, "I don't know. She brought me cigarettes too." Rosen calls the girl, "Hey, little one." But suddenly it freezes in place. The blonde says loudly, "You can't go to such places alone. Where are your parents?" The girl turns her head in the direction of the blonde. Oh, she takes the ball in her hands and comes closer to the bars. Rosen tries to stop her. "No, I told you to come back." But the girl does not listen to her. Mala smiles kindly at the blonde. "Good evening." Rosen immediately puts away his cigarette. It was not enough for the child to smell the smoke. The girl says her name is Layla Rival. Rosen's eyes widen. This last name seems familiar to her. She asks the child, "You, sometimes? Don't you know Henry Rival?" The girl joyfully answers, "This is my uncle. Do you know him? Are you friends?" The girl sits down on the floor to talk to the little one on the same level. You can say, "I know." The blonde scolds Henry mentally. "You fool, what is he doing there instead of watching the child? Mocks the prisoners?" The girl turns to Layla. "Don't you know that you can't come here? This is not a playground." The girl gasped. But Bilyavka notes that the little one does not look like Henry. And that is very good. The girl says that she has already boasted to her friends that she will meet Rosenwalker. The blonde asks with a smile, "Rosenwalker?" The girl begins to tell what she knows about this person. The most famous fugitive of the Empire. People talked about her when they boarded our ship. Lila adds with a hint of resentment in her voice, "My grandfather is the captain of the ship, so I said I could meet her, and they don't believe me." Rosen hums happily. She asks the little one, "Lila, yes?" The girl sparkles with huge blue eyes. "Yes." She is glad that the blonde didn't chase her away. The girl stands up, leans her elbows on the bars, and smiles. "Well, congratulations, you came to the address. I am Rosen Walker." Layla is shocked. The ship sails calmly to Monty Island. Someone sneezes loudly. "This is Henry. My husband is slightly allergic to sea air. He is not satisfied with his work, or rather a runaway." The commander, looking at the sea, calmly replies, "Just think that we are going on vacation. Monty Island is a turning point. In addition, many people enjoy the scenery." The blonde rolled his eyes. "The war is barely over and people are already bored?" The commander laughs. He thinks that Henry is acting like an old man. The fair-haired man directs his gaze at the crystal-clear and still quiet water. As for that woman, he changed the subject so quickly because he didn't want to hear the commander's taunts. Henry says thoughtfully, "The witch of Al-Kafez." "She too." The commander tenses up. He seems to guess where his friend is headed. The fair-haired one, not taking his eyes off the sea, continues, "She's also from Rioriton." The dark-haired one turns his head to the side. "Rioriton, Rioriton." Henry hurries to reassure the commander. "You cannot worry so much." The blonde says that everything is indeed fine now. Rosenwalker is also from Rioriton. It seems that she lived on the outskirts of the city and then committed a crime. The commander says that he knows about it. He got acquainted with the case of this criminal. The blonde agrees with the commander. "Of course you know," Henry adds, "that Rosen's life was described in detail in his report. That's why he talks about it." The commander thinks about the words of his subject. After a few minutes, the fair-haired man says, "I thought that you focused your attention on her because of this fact. They even talked to her personally." The commander plunges into memories. Rioriton is his little motherland. There he began to study military affairs, spent his youth there. It was in this city that Iowan got on a plane for the first time, and it was there during the war that the bombing took place, which turned the city into ruins. Then Rioriton was on fire. People, overwhelmed by grief and enemy fire, tried to escape. Henry snaps the man out of his thoughts and says somewhat angrily, "In a way, this girl is so lucky that it's annoying. Escape allowed her to escape death." The blonde clutches the sleeve of his shirt. She's become famous, and she's going to Monty Island accompanied by Sir Connor himself. It's such an honor for her. The dark-haired man notices that his subject grimaces at the mention of the island with the most terrible prison. Connor says, "That's right, Henry. Monty Island." After a few seconds, the man adds, "You yourself know perfectly well what that means." Henry frowns. "I can't help but know, but..." It can be seen that the man is upset about something. The fair-haired man remembers how he was once on this island. Then he tried to save the person dear to him. He did not succeed, but at least the girl did not die. Henry still remembers looking at her thin, bloody wrists. On her medallion. He really wanted to save her, but he couldn't. It was impossible to do it. Henry exclaims, "Monty Island or whatever, she's still alive." That fair-haired smiling girl from the locket is still alive. A cell with prisoners. The pink ball falls on the wooden floor with a characteristic sound. Surprised, Lila uncertainly asks the blonde, "Really?" The girl puts her hands to her mouth. "Sister, are you Roseanne Walker?" Mala, of course, she wanted to meet the most famous fugitive, but she did not think that it would happen so soon. The blonde is amused by her reaction. True, but try to be quieter, I don't tell everyone about it. The girl obediently nods her head. Layla clenches her hands into fists out of pleasant excitement. And what is written in the newspapers is true? Did you dig with a spoon? Rosen confirms this. Then the girl asks if the blonde really has magic. Rosen's eyes widen. One interesting and good idea came to her head. The girl thinks for a moment whether it is worth making it a reality. On the one hand, it may not be very fair, but she has no other options either. Ultimately, Rosen decides to act. She leans into the little one as far as the bars and shackles allow her. Layla, right? So, says the little girl happily. The girl says, I have a question for Layla. Will you answer? The girl freezes in place. Oh. The girl sees that the little one hesitates, so she decides to behave as friendly as possible. The blonde shines her eyes and smiles. And I'll show you magic. The clanking of shackles is heard. Lila turns her gaze to the only lamp in the room. But grandfather ordered not to comply with the requests of the prisoners? So, says the blonde calmly, you don't want to see magic. Do you want to? The girl is thinking. Maria watches this picture with interest. Lila examines her fingers, trying to figure out what to do next. Rosen unobtrusively nudges the girl. I won't ask anything like that. Vilyavka says that she is just interested in learning something. Lila agrees to answer. Rosen claps his hands and smiles. Such a good girl. Rosen asks the girl if she knows Ian Connor. The girl answers, Yes, Uncle's manager, a war hero, the best pilot. How can you not know him? Rosen asks the child the following question. Is he close to you? Sadness appears in the girl's eyes. Not at all. Ian is cold. But, adds Lila, my uncle said that although Ian doesn't show it, he really cares about me. After all, he knew me from the time I was in my mother's stomach. The girl remembers Ian's words. He said that I can consider him another uncle. But Lila is not so sure about it. Ian's severity scares the child a little. A light of curiosity flares up in the blonde's eyes. Yes, is he married, or perhaps he has a lover or a fiancé? A completely innocent question. The girl says that Connor has no one. The other adults want him to get married as soon as possible, but Ian doesn't care. The blonde giggles with interest. She cautiously asks about the girls in the commander's room. The girl opens her eyes wide and innocently asks, Girls? Rosen doesn't know how to ask this. Still, there is a child in front of her. Rosen finally finds the right words. Didn't you see the girls go into his room? Layla says she has never seen anything like this. The girl does not know what to say to her. On the one hand, this is quite strange. After all, Connor is such a handsome man. Maybe he just doesn't think anyone is worthy of his attention. The blonde slowly says, Lila, and Ian Connor? Is he a compassionate person? Rosen needs to know the nature of her warden in order to escape. Lila opens her already big eyes wide. And what is compassionate? Rosen freezes in place. She does not know how to explain the meaning of this word. Maria comes to help the girl. That's the feeling when you feel sorry for someone, kid. Bilyavka casts a grateful look at Maria. The woman smiles, like when you bring home a wet puppy, or when you start crying if you see someone else crying. That's the feeling. The girl's eyes twinkle. She is surprised by something. Layla squints and smiles widely. Ah, you're talking about love, right? Rosen flinches. Yeah. Maria sees that her friend is confused by the word love and decides to make a joke about it. Sweats like that? Bilyavka asks Maria to shut up. She still feels awkward. The girl says, But I don't think Ian can just love someone like that. Rosen purses his lips and mentally agrees with Lila. Yes, the commander is a tough nut. Melting his heart is definitely not easy. After all, he is a military man. The person is strict, disciplined, and restrained. Lila clenches her hands into fists, and still, Ian is very good even if he doesn't show it. Ian can't be bad, continues the little girl, because he's a hero. The blonde smiles, wanting to reassure the girl. That's right, thank you, Layla. Rosen rests his hands on his knees and says to the girl, This is enough for me. Now my part of the deal, right? Lila freezes in place in anticipation. The blonde asks the girl to give her something, even a small one. Lila puts a silver coin in Rosen's palm. Good, says the girl. Great. Mala asks Rosen, what are you going to do with her? It seems that she is afraid that the girl will take her coin for herself. The blonde bends her wrist. Didn't you know, Layla? The girl looks fascinated at Rosen's hand. The girl smiles enigmatically and shows Lila the back of her hand. Magic needs an intermediary. Layla is amazed. Wow, the coin is gone. But Rosen says that's not the case. She holds up her middle and ring fingers, showing Lila the coin. The blonde gives it to the girl. Hold on, now this is your lucky coin. The girl says it's a secret, but at sunset the coin will turn gold. However, the blonde raises a finger to her lips and winks at Lila. In return, you must not tell anyone about this. Otherwise, the magic will dissipate. The girl runs to the stairs. The lantern on the wall sways from her steps. As soon as the little girl disappears from the sight of the prisoners, Maria asks the blonde if she really used magic. The blonde lays down on the floor and waves her hand. No way, it's just a trick. She will soon find out about it too. Maria recalls Layla's joy. I doubt it. The woman looks at the old wooden stairs. Don't you always say you can't lie? The blonde asks. Really? Maria's eyes twinkle. Well, yes, if you were a real witch, you wouldn't allow yourself to be arrested so easily. The girl says that she has nowhere to go. But the woman doesn't think like that. Of course you can't get to the mainland on a lifeboat, but there is another place. The blonde is thinking. Maria continues. No one knows if it exists in reality, but they say there is a place on the planet where witches hide from the whole world. This place is Walpurgis Island. The woman smiles and says that the blonde herself probably knows about the Witches' Island, a paradise for witches who have been persecuted for centuries. Maria notes that there are rumors among the people that Walpurgis is not that far from Monte. The blonde sighs. Not everyone can get there. The girl stares at the ceiling. And by the way, do you think that this place is just called the Island of Witches? Maria says that Walpurgis is just a haven for witches. The ship rocks on the waves. Rosen continues to stare at the bars and ignore Maria. The woman asks the blonde, is it easy to deceive children with pity? Maria says that it would be nice if Rosen tried this method on the commander. The girl does not answer, but the woman's offer made her think. True, finally says the blonde. She clutches her dirty dress. It seems that the girl fell into melancholy. There are no other options left. Using a hero and getting a sympathy ticket from him is an interesting option. At least it can be done. True, we will have to find a separate approach to Connor. The methods that worked on all kinds of idiots with Ian Connor will not work. He is not the warden in Kafaza, from whom the girl was able to steal the spoon by seducing him. But even this ideal young man has his own weakness. He is a military man, a pilot, and also a hero. The complete opposite of Rosen. The life of a dark-haired man is a continuous victory. The girl is confident that she will be able to reach his high bar. That can become infinitely miserable and crushed. He will be able to lie at the commander's feet and shed endless bitter tears of defeat. She will hand the victory to her incredible opponent. And the feeling of superiority over someone is very sweet and pleasant. And it is much more addictive than love. The blue-eyed fugitive is going to take advantage of this. Rosen rubs his wrist, which has begun to itch from the heavy iron shackles. But the girl's actions are now more automatic than conscious. All her thoughts turn to the commander. The feeling she wants to evoke in the dark-haired, handsome man is also much easier to achieve than love. It's just brilliant. The night sky is covered with light white clouds. The commander and his fair-haired subject are still on deck. Connor convinces himself that Henry will be fine. The commander directs a slightly worried look at the fair-haired man. Connor knows that periodically such bouts of regret will haunt Henry. Once a dark-haired woman with a short haircut told the commander about this. There may come a moment when feelings will burst out. She noted that sometimes these feelings will be impossible to control. Connor then asked what he should do in such a case. The woman raised her finger. Just keep quiet. The man also reminds him that he should give reasonable answers until Henry's seizures are over. The dark-haired man thinks, what should he do now? Can he say something? After all, Henry has been silent for 10 minutes. In the end, Connor invites the blonde to go inside. Henry glares at him. Ah, yes, says the subject of the commander. The dark-haired man walks inside. The man follows him. Henry says, I don't think so, but it's infuriating. Rosen does not give the fair-haired man any peace. He does not understand how a war hero could be tasked with transporting the witch of Al-Kafeza. The commander says that nothing can be done. The main task of the military is to carry out orders, but the fair-haired man does not stop. Sir Connor, will you still be promoted to an important post after this work? Henry directs his gaze to a beautiful decorative tree. The fair-haired man believes that the commander deserves a medal for military merit, but Connor doesn't seem to care. Who knows, he says. Henry raises his eyebrows. It's a must. In the Empire, the only people who hate you are the bastards from the ground forces and the people from Ryo-Righton. The blonde is offended by the haters of the commander. After all, in his opinion, it is because of them that they are forced to suffer. Connor sighs tiredly, but remains silent. He understands that there is no point in arguing with Henry now. Blonde says that if the commander takes Rosen to Monty Island, people will start respecting him again. The fair-haired person expresses his assumptions about the plans of a part of the people. You were given this order precisely for such reasons. It's all a show. Connor must be a hero. And heroes should not have spots and flaws. All military personnel who have some sins try to hide them with the help of some glorious cause. Henry frowns. But anyway, once we're done with this job, get some rest and at least try to live for yourself, please. The blonde is sure that Connor has a bright future ahead of him, which he fully deserves. But the commander is not happy with Henry's words. Brilliant future, the dark-haired man repeats in his mind. It is quite difficult for a man to come to terms with the fact that most people praise him almost as a deity. Connor remembers his past. Only after the end of the bloody war, when the man passed through the triumphal arch, he realized that he had become a hero. The huge crowd chanted only one name. Ian, Ian, Ian! People brought wicker baskets with flowers and scattered colorful petals. All this, of course, is wonderful. Ian deserved this attitude. However, the man did not feel the joy of being glorified. He just silently observed people's emotions. Connor does not remember the look on his face as he walked through the triumphal arch. The man only knows for sure that this action took place to the applause and shouts of the audience. The dark-haired man should have been smiling. But was his smile sincere and convincing? Hard to say. Then Ian felt confused and scared for some reason. The residents of Ryo-Righton did not come out of his head. People he couldn't protect. Among them were many women and children begging for salvation. Ian remembers one man saying, "You can't keep everyone safe no matter how much you want to. Where is absolute victory seen?" Henry crosses his arms over his chest and turns his head to the side. You did your best. After all, you are not God. Everyone knows that a commander must choose the lesser of two evils. Ian disagrees. It's all just excuses. The blonde sighs in exasperation. Anyways, pay no attention to Roseanne Walker. Henry says he's ready to take on the fugitive's case himself. The commander advises the blonde to focus on recovery. He is indignant. I'm not a patient anymore. Connor turns and walks to his cabin. Henry ponders. No, I don't think this really should be done. All the same, everything is not in order with me. As with everyone. Connor's cabin. The sea breeze enters the room through an open window. It shakes light-colored curtains and refreshes the cabin. Connor sits in his chair. The man's eyes are closed. He thinks again about his participation in the war. It's not your fault. At that moment, all aviation strategies were just a game. The dark-haired man looks forward. Henry praised him so much, he said that if it weren't for him, the Empire would have lost this war. Then there would be many more deaths. Connor throws his head up. Maybe so. But if I am not to blame for the death of the residents of Ryo-Righton, then who is? Who will be responsible for the deaths of young women and children? When the war ended, one of the generals, a man with a bushy beard and brown hair, ordered Connor to deliver the prisoners to Monty Island. Keep a close eye on Rosenhaus, said the general that day. The commander was somewhat puzzled by these words. He could not even think that a woman could be a criminal, but also very dangerous. Rosenhaus. This name stuck firmly in Connor's head and does not leave his thoughts for a minute. And now the man is looking at the case of the fugitive. The dark-haired man moves the papers with his hands. Rosenhaus is a fugitive from Ryo-Righton, the only person from this city who managed to survive. As? It is unknown. Connor stands up and rests his hands on the table. He scrutinizes the photos, Rosen, hoping to spot something out of the ordinary. Something that would tell him how this girl was able to survive the terrible bombings and still stay healthy. Ian thinks. But it seems the man will not be allowed to think normally today. He is distracted again. And why then, he asks, was it necessary to call me? Did you hear? Sounds rather indignant. Rosen is standing in front of the commander. The girl's hair is braided. Her arms are crossed on her chest. Her face is angry. Ian's eyes go wide. He tries to remember when Rose called him to his cabin. Ah, of course, the man says in his mind. A conversation about something important. Among the pile of papers on his desk, the dark-haired man finds a newspaper containing information about sea monsters in the area. The man says, "Well, let's continue." Rosen rolls his eyes. The commander called her here to tell about the monsters she had seen with her own eyes. The girl considers this to be complete stupidity. Meanwhile, Connor says, "Next we have a shark. You should know the diet of sharks." Rosen grinds his teeth in rage. "Finish it already!" exclaims the girl, sharply leaning forward. Papers fly in all directions. The dark-haired man purses his lips. Rosen looks at the inscriptions and drawings on the sheets. I understand. To summarize, thinking about running away is a stupid thing to do, right? Even with lectures about monsters, you have to be in moderation. Vilyavka hands one of the pieces of paper to the commander's face. What a day this is already going on. Do you really think I'm an idiot and don't understand the basics? The man looks at the bookcase and says in the tone of a sage, "An idiot is always separated from a hero by only one sheet of paper. Both the hero and the idiot don't think about the consequences." The dark-haired man raises his eyebrows and dryly adds, "But if you start thinking with your head, you can't dare to do something like that because it's dangerous." Rosen smirks. "Are you saying I don't use my head?" The dark-haired one answers with the same calmness. "You are brave. Some consider you a dark hero." The girl asks her husband a provocative question. "So for you, am I an idiot or a heroine?" The dark-haired man looks away from Rosen. This question confused him. About a minute later, the man finally answers. "According to my criteria, you are an idiot if you escaped." Rosen flops down on a chair. The commander tells her not to behave aggressively. The girl folds her hands in a lock. "So you think that I should have served 50 years in peace?" The blonde sparkles with blue eyes. "How should I have done it, huh?" In her mind, the girl notes that the commander looks interested when she carries the delusion. "Can you tell me, smartass?" asks the blonde. Connor falls into a stupor again. Rosen's behavior and the questions the girl asks him look quite strange, but Connor cannot remain silent either. So he will lose authority in the eyes of the prisoner, but the man has nothing to worry about. He already did it. Rosen laughs. Connor picks up a pen and begins to jot something down on a piece of paper. "You should start by saying that at your initial sentencing, you should plead guilty." The man leads to the fact that in such a case, Rosen could receive leniency. But the girl doesn't think like that. "Phew. In that case, I would have died in Raya-Written." The dark-haired man rolls his eyes. The mention of Raya-Written causes him heartache. The girl notices his nervousness and hurries to turn everything into a joke. Rosen then begins to resent the fact that she was given such a long deadline. "Suppose I was patient, but one day I snapped." The blonde is angry. She does not understand why her neighbor, who killed his wife, was given 8 years while she got 50. Connor points a finger at the bookcase, silencing Rosen. The girl frowns. It is unpleasant for her that she was killed. Connor says the reason she once got the maximum term is written into the law. Rosen opens his eyes wide and puts his hand to his mouth. "But I can't read." The commander says that he knows very well that the famous fugitive is illiterate. He picks up the pen again. "Didn't I just explain something? Everything is written in the legislation. If you were imprisoned for 50 years, then there was a reason for that." Rosen tries to argue, "That's not fair." Connor stands up. "But the fact that you are now sentenced to life imprisonment on the island of Monty is only your fault." The man says that he behaved very gently and condescendingly towards Rosen. The girl almost suffocates from indignation. "Wait a second, wait!" But it seems the man lost his temper. He grabs the blonde by the shackles. "The personal conversation is over." The girl tries to stop the dark-haired man. "Wait!" But he doesn't listen. Instead, Connor simply walks up to the door. Fear appears in Rosen's eyes. "I can't just leave like that. It will happen again." The blonde looks at the commander. In the worst case, she thinks to herself, there may not be another chance. The girl understands that now she needs to say something very inappropriate and strange in order to offend the commander. He touches the door handle. Think, Rosen, the blonde says to herself. The girl has very little time to say anything. Another second and Connor will leave the room. Finally, the blonde exclaims, "You are the same." The man freezes in place and gives Rosen an uncomprehending and somewhat angry look. The girl confidently continues, "You're an idiot too, just like me." The dark-haired one is shocked. "What did you say?" The girl takes a step towards him. "You said it yourself. Like one sheet of paper separates a hero from an idiot." "So aren't we the same?" Rosen almost shouts. "You are an ideal person, a sunny hero, and I am a dark hero, and we're both idiots." "How are we different?" asks the blonde. Ian drills the girl with a devastating look. It seems that she still managed to press on the painful one. And this is just the beginning. Rosen utters a phrase that confuses the commander. No one believed that we could win this terrible war. And it's true. After all, the empire in which Ian and Rosen live is actually a small country with a pompous name. Talos, on the other hand, is an aggressor state that has captured more than one weak country. Connor clenches his hands into fists and squeezes. We won after all, and that's the main thing. There is no going back to what was. Living in the past is a bad habit. But Rosen is not going to retreat so quickly. You speak correctly, Commander. Living in the past does not bring anything good. But our victory is empty. What did we get from her? Says the blonde. Broken people, cities in ruins? Rosen points a finger at the commander's suit. They put you in a good uniform. Her soft hand touches the perfectly ironed black tie around Connor's neck. And now you're transporting prisoners. Why does a war hero do such a job? The dark-haired man cannot stand such humiliation. He pulls the chains on the girl's shackles, causing her pain. The blonde's hands were already damaged by the rusty metal. Connor leans into Rosen's face and says with disgust and anger in his voice, "Shut up." He is very angry with the blonde now. How dare this fugitive talk to him like that? But Rosen is satisfied with the commander's reaction. This is exactly what she needs. The girl smiles slyly and twinkles her eyes. Is this a victory too? The man tries to get out. Don't be delusional. The blonde waits for him to hit her until he shows his weakness. The girl says, "Is there something to be proud of?" She seeks to ignite an angry fire inside the dark-haired man. As for the pain she'll feel when hit, that's not a problem. The blonde clenches her hands into fists. "Please press me to the floor with your military boot," Rosen thinks to himself, not taking his eyes off Connor's angry face. "I'm not afraid of pain." A sharp sound is heard. This is the commander's fist, but it does not fall on the girl's cheek but on a strong door made of young oak. "Rosenhaus," Connor says. "Your words are correct," he adds after a few seconds. The blonde freezes in place with her mouth open. What? She definitely did not expect such a turn of events. The man does not pay attention to the girl's reaction. Instead, he says that many of his military comrades died in the sky of the fatherland. History does not remember them. But they, knowing that no one would remember them with a kind word, gave their lives for ordinary people. Connor says, "I don't think you have to thank them for that, no." "Everyone has their own choice," the commander continues, recalling the cheerful faces of the brave men with whom he defended the sky. "But you must not insult them." The man opens one half of the door. "If you have such an opportunity, I hope you will understand that not everyone in this world lives like you." The dark-haired man pulls on the chain of Rosen's shackles. "Looks like you tried to provoke me now. Stop playing tricks that are so obvious." Connor says he won't go for it, and Rosen better find someone else to sympathize with. The girl shuddered from being bitten. She says she wasn't lying. The commander snorts disdainfully. "You really don't surprise me at all. So simple and confident. You think you can fool everyone and get away with it?" The man looks at the chains from the shackles. "Tell you something? In fact, there is no need for such chains in this sea. However, they still chained you up." The dark-haired one stares at the blonde. "You know why? This is a symbol of the gravity of your crime. A symbol of the sin of taking another person's life. And even your clear eyes won't do you justice." The girl is a little surprised. These words came from the mouth of the same person who protected the sky during the war. She mentally notes, But two different voices overlap in my head. Filyavka does not believe that the pilot who cut through the sky of rewritten on his plane turned into a person transporting prisoners on a former military ship. Rosen tells the man that he's a fucking idiot. Connor remains calm. I totally get what you're thinking, Rosenhaus. It is obvious. The dark-haired man pushes the blonde into the corridor. The girl looks around, still hoping to stay. But the husband does not give her a chance. There will be no personal conversations. The girl has no choice but to leave her husband's cabin. She lowers her head. Basically, what did I really expect? The blonde clutches the chains of the shackles with her fingers. She remembers the commander's voice when he was still a pilot. Dear citizens, you can be calm. No one will hurt you, said the man, dissecting the gloomy dark sky. The dark-haired man himself was scared, but he understood that he had to fulfill his duty. Must protect the people. People huddled together. The sounds of explosions were heard. Connor was saying, if the air raid siren goes off, put out the fire. Two girls were sitting near some old boxes, hugging their knees. They were so frightened that they were afraid to move. Connor promised to protect the sky. Rosen closes her eyes. I really listened to that voice again. If I expected to hear it again, like then. The girl remembers the commander's words. Everything is for you. The blonde, without realizing it, constantly forgets about reality and falls into a strange self-delusion. Connor is no longer the cheerful and daring pilot. Now he is a serious grown man with numerous psychological injuries. The war turned his heart to stone. If Rosen starts talking to him, he won't hear that voice. And this upsets the girl. No, she is not in love with the pilot, not at all. It's just that the blonde trusted this man for a long time, and it hurts to be disappointed in him. The girl's sadness turns to rage. The blonde woman clutches her head with her hands. Lord, how annoying. If you became a hero, do you think you have achieved everything? The girl jingles the shackles and raises her eyebrows. Do you think I will allow myself to break here? I will definitely have a chance. Someone's footsteps are heard. Rosen raises his head. She sees Henry in front of her. He angrily says, Hey, what are you doing? She collected her hair, wiped her face. If you had something red, would you also paint your lips? The girl decides to play with Henry. She tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. You should take a good look at me, huh? Beauty, right? The man snorts. Funny. The man leads the girl to the cell. She says, I just kept clean water, which, by the way, is barely enough for a mouse's tail here. The man tells her not to pretend. The blonde believes that the girl wants to use him and she has special methods. Rosen irritably asks, What kind? The man is thinking. He tries to say something. I don't know. Well, everyone there? The girl rolls her eyes and says to herself, Ian Connor be as simple as that bastard. Then it would be much easier for her. The girl decides to play a joke on her husband. What is there not to know when a man and a woman are left alone? The man shouts, Shut up. The blonde understands that Henry is embarrassed and it amuses her. Rosen's eyes twinkle. Or are you interested in me? It's just a pleasure for her to make Henry angry. The man grits his teeth. What are you carrying? The girl calmly answers, If you are forever talking some stupid thing about some methods, then about something else, am I telling the truth? The blonde puts his hand to his forehead, pretending that he has a headache. I just won't talk to you. The girl smiles. But why? Shall we be friends? The man understands that it is better not to act on provocations, so he simply orders Rosen to go faster. The blonde opens her eyes wide. She is surprised that this fool did not fall for her tricks as well. But well him. Rosen picks up the pace. The girl turns her head to the side and sees a little girl in a red dress. The child's light hair is gathered in a high tail, tied with a red bow the color of the dress. The girl takes out a candy from the bag she is holding in her hands. The blonde pauses for a moment. Leela? Again, she fearlessly carries herself everywhere. Is it possible to leave her alone? Why is no one watching the child? The girl looks at Henry, who is unlocking the door to the prison. Rosen mentally notes that the blonde and Lila do look alike. The blonde turns to Henry. Listen. The man stares at her in disbelief. Rosen tilts his head to one side and smiles innocently. She is about to tell Henry something that will shock him. The girl sparkles with blue eyes. Your niece is such a cute girl. Is her name like Layla? The blonde immediately tenses up. What did you say? He asks Rosen how she knows his little niece. The girl looks away. It wasn't difficult at all. She is not going to tell her husband about the meeting with Layla. It might make him angry, and the girl will fly for going where she shouldn't. Henry snaps his head in the direction of where Lila is standing. What? Rosen smiles. The man is so shocked that he drops the set of keys. He stares at Lila. The blonde, with some mockery in her voice, asks him, "Are you scared?" The girl does not pay attention to adults. She unwraps the candy and puts it in her mouth. Layla wanted to eat something delicious for so long. Rosen says to the man, "What can I beat in chains? Why such a fright?" The blonde claps his palm on his forehead. "You must be a witch," he says angrily. The man bends down and picks up a bunch of keys from the floor. "I thought so even when everyone said it was not true. Children's fiction. Gossip of drunkards." The fair-haired one points a finger at Rosen and says that soon she will be brought out to clean water. He warns the girl, "Don't you dare touch Layla." The blonde spreads her hands. She doesn't care what this idiot thinks about her. A man yells at his niece, "Lila!" You can understand from his voice that he is dissatisfied with the behavior of the little girl. But the fair-haired man does not have time to say anything more. Layla grabs her throat with her hands and starts coughing loudly. The girl's face turns red. The blonde carefully says, "Layla?" Rosen stares at the girl. The blonde understands that something is wrong with the child. Something happened. The girl looks at the blonde and her uncle. Mala cannot say anything, but her eyes are literally begging for help. The girl is sick. Rosen seems to understand what's going on. Something's stuck in Lila's throat. The child is suffocating. The blonde squeezes Henry's shoulder. "Hey, a doctor is needed. Where is the doctor?" But the man does not respond to Rosen's screams. He can't say anything at all. The blonde tries to push him away. "Answer me, you idiot! Your niece is dying!" She asks her husband to finally come to his senses. But he just silently looks at Layla, unable to even move. He is very scared, and there is no point in touching him now. Rosen realizes this, so he starts shouting loudly to the entire ship, "Hey, is there anyone here?" But no one answers. "Devil, where did everyone go?" The blonde swears in her mind. She tries to get someone's attention again. "Help!" Without effect. All cabin doors remain locked. And there is a reason for this. Rosen, Henry, and Lila are in an uninhabited part of the ship. The girl begins to think feverishly what to do. There is little time to help Lila. A maximum of a minute, and the girl will suffocate. Rosen isn't going to just stand by and watch it happen. She wants to run to Lila, but she can't because of the shackles. The girl stares at Henry. Only he can free her now. The blonde exclaims, "Hey!" The man does not even turn his head in her direction. He is panicking. Rosen yells in his face, "I know what to do, so release me now. Do you hear that, idiot? Come on, finally, and take off these cursed shackles from me." The girl really knows how to save Lila. Once during the war, a friend made her read boring articles about first aid. Henry finally comes to his senses. He stares at Rosen, frightened. The man does not want to let the criminal go, but he understands that there is no other way to help Lila. Vilyavka is going to put her medical knowledge into practice as soon as possible. Her friend tried in vain to hammer this information into her head. Emily, that was the name of the girl with whom Rosen lived during the war, said that a person is a very fragile creature that can die for absurd reasons. Henry releases Rosen's hands. During the war, the blonde sincerely did not understand why Emily, a cute dark-haired girl, was teaching medicine to others. After all, no one will know that everything is thanks to her. But that was the point. As soon as Rosen feels the heavy iron on her hands, she jumps up. An image of Emily appears in her head. One person cannot save the world. Rosen runs to Lila, hoping that she will have time to help the little one. The sound of the blonde's shoes can be heard by the entire ship, but the girl sneezed on it. The main thing for her right now is to keep Lila from suffocating. Vilyavka stretches out her hands to Lila. Not everyone is gifted with magic, but everyone can use it. Finally, the girl's screams were heard. People from the other part of the ship begin to emerge from their cabins. One of the servants lights the candles in the corridor. From one of the rooms, a man in a black tuxedo and his dark-haired wife, wrapped in a veil, come out. One woman asks the couple what happened on the ship. Rumors are spreading through the ship that a little girl is in trouble, but fortunately she was saved. People gather around the blonde, hugging Lila. Rosen is shocked that she managed to help the little one. The girl did not think that she would be able to cope. She mentally thanks Amelia for teaching her how to provide medical aid. Terrified, Lila hugs her savior's neck and begins to cry. The blonde hugs the little one tighter, wanting to reassure her. Everything is fine. The girl's cry brings Henry to his senses. The man jumps up and runs to his niece. Lila! Tears flow down his cheeks. Lila, are you really all right? People continue to whisper among themselves. Those who saw Layla's rescue explain to those who just arrived what happened here. That girl, the ship's passengers point at Rosen, grabbed the child and gave her first aid. Layla runs to her uncle. He hugs the girl. Rosen listens to the rumors about himself. God, the truth is that there was almost a big disaster. But I saw this woman somewhere. Is she the witch from Al-Kafezu? Rosen does not hear anything new about himself. The girl examines the floor and notices what caused Lila to almost die. This is a small pink candy that the little one wanted to eat. Rosen's eyes widen in surprise. She raises her hand to the candy. The girl can't believe that this small and probably tasty thing almost killed Lila. But it doesn't matter now, it's all over. Rosen puts his hand to his forehead and exhales with relief. Haha, what a bullet, what a candy can take a person's life. The blonde clutches her dress with her hands and says to herself, in this case, not only the military can save or kill. The girl lowers her eyes to the floor. Someone approaches Rosen. Oh, has Henry the bastard finally got a hold of himself? Smiles the blonde. She leans forward. Well, what do you say? My skill. Until the girl sees that it is not Henry in front of her. The blonde was not wearing a black shirt. Rosen asks her husband to give her water so she can wash herself. Or, the girl continues, you can leave lots and lots of food in the cell. And why are we silent? The blonde's eyes twinkle. This is just a payment for a saved life. The girl raises her head and immediately falls silent. She sees Connor, he says, let's do it. The blonde is shocked. She suddenly got a second chance to bewitch him. The man raises his eyebrows. He is grateful to the girl but does not show it. Rosen says cautiously, You? Why are you here? I thought it was Henry. The dark-haired man does not have time to answer anything. A low male voice is heard. Lila, are you okay? Connor and Rosen turn their heads. The little one exclaims, Grandpa! A blonde sees a fair-haired man in a gray suit. He hugs his granddaughter. The girl, who has not yet recovered from the recent adventure, sobs. Lila's grandfather is a ship captain. Rosen recognized him. She smiles with the corner of her mouth. The girl rests her hand on her knee, about to stand up. I just said that. About the reward. The girl touches a lock of her hair. And I didn't help because I wanted to get something from Henry or you, don't think... But the dark-haired man does not let her finish. Such a reward is a trifle. The Imperial Army always pays for a life saved. The girl frowns. Again, Connor talks about the nobility of the Imperial soldiers. The blonde looks at the shackles in the man's hands. He continues, Even if you are a criminal. The dark-haired man looks into the girl's eyes. Even if you were exiled to the island of Monte, you will still be rewarded for saving a human life. After a few seconds, the blonde answers, Okay, thanks. The girl is satisfied that after several days of sitting in a dirty cell for prisoners, she will be able to wash herself. Will you really allow it? Asks the blonde just in case. So, a short and clear answer. Connor takes the girl by the hands to put the shackles on them. The man says it's a rule. The blonde is indignant. How should I wash? Just pour water over? How do you imagine it? Am I a vegetable or what? The dark-haired man calmly says that he can put the people who will serve her to the blonde. A man approaches the couple with a cane in his hands. This is the captain of the ship. But Connor does not notice his presence, so he continues to say as if nothing had happened. You will be a princess, although it is not meant to be. The dark-haired man fastens the shackles on Rosen's hands. The girl asks her husband to be gentler and more careful. He orders her not to twitch. Finally, he notices that they are not alone. The captain angrily shouts, Ian Connor, ill-mannered bastard, is that how I taught you to behave? It can be seen that the older man is unhappy with Ian's behavior. Rosen's eyes widen. She didn't think the captain would speak in such a tone to a war hero. The older man continues, Shackling the savior? The girl understands that this old man is a respectable person. Connor tries to say something, "Captain!" but his attempts look just pathetic. The old man calms down a little. "I ordered Henry to escort the guests to their cabins, at least let the lady go for a while. In any case, the sea is here." Connor says he can't do that. The old man again starts shouting, "Why can't you? You can. Everything is possible in this world. Let her go." The dark-haired man begins to talk about the laws of the Empire, but it doesn't work on the captain. Rosen enjoys watching the men argue. The captain bangs his cane on the floor with force. "The laws of land do not work at sea." The old man beats his chest. "On the steamer Visha's, I am the law." The old man exhales angrily. The dark-haired man no longer dares to say anything. Rosen stares at the captain in surprise. "This is a man," she says in her mind. The captain says a little more calmly, "Do you lack even minimal flexibility? How do you behave with Layla's savior?" The girl notices that the old man is not alone. Lila is standing next to him. The girl smiles at the blonde and extends her hand. The captain continues to read notes to Connor. "The shackles need to be removed while I thank her." The girl waves to Lily. Connor hesitantly tells the captain that Rosen is a dangerous criminal, the Empire's most notorious fugitive. She cannot be let go so easily. The old man runs his hand through Lila's hair. The girl squints sweetly. "First of all," says the captain, looking at his granddaughter, "she is a savior." Dark-haired does not agree. "First of all, she is a criminal, and no matter who she saves, her crimes cannot be forgotten under any circumstances." The captain lightly smacks Connor on the head. "Scoundrel, you always have to put in your 5 cents, don't you?" The dark-haired one asks the old man to calm down. The commander says that he is a military man carrying out an order from the leadership, and he cannot make any exceptions. The old man ignores Connor, turning to Rosen. "Lady Chaos, you will already forgive this little one for his rudeness, and accept the gratitude of the old man." Rosen's eyes widen. The captain himself thanked her. The girl does not know what to answer him, but the old man takes the conversation into his own hands. I forgot to recommend myself. Please excuse me." The captain begins to tell his story. "I am now retired, but I was once an admiral of the Navy. It's embarrassing, but I think you've heard the name Alex Revel." A vague picture of a man on a horse appears in the girl's imagination. "Alex Revel? I've already heard it somewhere." After a second, the girl remembers how she knows the captain. "Hatir," exclaims the blonde. "Mr. Braun's statue of the war hero in the square of the Capitol." The man laughs. "Ha ha. Glad you recognized me." The girl's eyes sparkle. "Of course I heard. This is the hero of the old war. Even children like me who were not even allowed to see school got to see the portrait of the hero Alex. This is an incredibly influential person." The blonde says in her mind, "I didn't expect that Revel to be the captain." Now the girl knows all 3 members of the Revel family. They are so different, but maybe that's the point. Rosen coughs into his fist. "Neither lady nor chaos. My name is Roseanne Walker, you know that, right?" The man asks if he can call her Mrs. Walker. "As you wish," answers the blonde. The captain leans over to Lila and says that she is his only granddaughter. "If it weren't for you," the old man said gratefully, "she would have died. I don't even know what I would do then. From what I heard, you want to wash and eat?" The captain glares at Connor. The old man thinks that the dark-haired man behaves inappropriately with Rosen. The blonde quietly says, "I will be grateful if they bring me water and food in the cell." The captain stands up sharply. "No!" The man said with a proud expression, "It is impossible for the Revel clan to treat a savior like this." Rosen rolls his eyes. The scene looks familiar for some reason. The captain raises his eyebrows and exclaims, "Our centuries-old honor will not allow us to thank him like that who saved Layla's life." Bilyavka is embarrassed. "You don't need that much." But the old man does not listen to her. He clears his throat into his fist. "So, if you don't have anything else planned for tomorrow night, would you please honor us with your presence at dinner?" The girl imagines how boring dinner will be. Aristocrats will shower each other with false compliments and discuss some nonsense. Rosen cannot stand this, so he tells the captain that he will refuse his offer. "Besides, what am I going to do there, a criminal?" says the blonde in her mind. Alex smiles. If you find it burdensome, you can't worry about it. This is not some grandiose event, a regular dinner with my family. The girl does not know what to answer to this. Connor intervenes in the conversation. Captain, this is too much. He does not understand how you can invite a prisoner to dinner. The dark-haired one glares at the girl. After all, it is. The words stuck in the man's throat as he met Rosen's coldly indifferent gaze. The girl guesses that the commander wants to say about her. Murderer, a commoner, she has no place there. She is dirty, disgusting, and dangerous. The blonde sinks into memories. War. A poorly furnished room similar to a warehouse. Barrels and shards of glass are lying on the floor.
Rosen sits on the floor by the old fireplace and says to herself, "The weak, the poor, the unfortunate, and the abandoned people. In my heart will always live the hope that my squadron."
The girl supports her chin with her fist and finishes, "It will be a strong defense for such people." When Rosen spoke these words, she was still very young and naive. The blonde is brought back to reality by a single word that Connor literally squeezed out of himself. Murderer. The man said this without looking at Rosen. He just couldn't. Alex is silent, but it is clear that the conversation is not over yet. Bilyavka decides to take the situation into her own hands. She smiles sweetly. The girl thanks the captain for the invitation and says that she sees no point in refusing such a wonderful offer. What's more, adds the blonde merrily, I'm always hungry. Besides, these words were directed more at Connor. I'll be able to eat with my hands in chains. The dark-haired man will have to admit that the girl really won't be able to escape, and therefore letting her out to dinner would not be a breach of security. Rosen smiles slyly. Sir Ian Connor kindly showed me the monsters that live here. Connor glares at the blonde. The girl mentally notes that he is still very handsome, even when angry or indignant. Rosen once again covers with a wave of memories. War, market. One of Rosen's friends, a girl in a pink shirt, asks her, "Are you picking up postcards again?" The blonde clutches a piece of paper to her chest and tries to justify herself. I was just passing by. But her friend doesn't believe it. But you have an addiction, don't you? Rosen unfolds the postcard and stares at the man depicted on it. Ian Connor, protector of heaven, guardian angel of many people. Rosen, without noticing it herself, smiles dreamily. She really likes Ian, this savior of human lives. The girl considers him very kind and noble. Rosen's memories change. Now she was standing with Ian Connor in his cabin. The man is angry with her. That day, the blonde was convinced that Connor was not who she imagined him to be. And because of that, she started to get angry. Rosen can't be blamed for that. When someone doesn't live up to our expectations, it almost always causes rage, right? The girl understands that Ian should have remained a person from her fantasies. Then everything would be great. Then she would not have to suffer because of him, be disappointed in his behavior. If the blonde knew Connor only as the brave man depicted on postcards, her life would be much easier. But you can't do anything. Life is constantly changing, and none of us can prevent these changes. Rosen puts his hand to his chest and says to himself, "It's too late to talk about it." The girl turns her head towards Ian and smiles at him. Sir Connor? It must be said that in the dim light of the ship's lights, Rosen looks a bit creepy. Premium cabin. A huge golden chandelier, walls decorated with portraits of rich aristocrats, windows covered with beautiful curtains. Everything here points to luxury. Rosen is in this room. The girl is lying on the bed. She clutches the snow-white sheets with her hands. The blonde just woke up. She barely opens her eyes. Where am I? It doesn't look like a camera. The girl directs her gaze to the ceiling, hoping to understand where she was taken. Rosen examines his fingers. Then he glances at the porcelain vases with flowers. It's very nice here. I haven't seen such conditions for a long time. The girl admires in her mind. She pulls the blanket up to her chin and closes her eyes in pleasure. Yes, Rosen is very pleased. Just what I need after the cold prison floor. The girl turns her head towards the door. I'll just sleep a little more. The door of the room opens with a characteristic sound. Someone comes inside. This is the maid. She turns to Roseanne, who has woken up immediately. Excuse me, did you have a good night's sleep, Mrs. Walker? The blonde is silent. You, she mutters. The number of maids in the room somehow magically increases to 3. One of them smiles sweetly. My name is Michaela, and this is Louise and Maya. The maids say that it is time for the girl to get up in order to have time to wash before dinner. The girls run up to Rosen and pull her off the bed. Well, let's go. The bathroom is right next door. But the blonde does not want to leave the warm bed at all. The maids do not let go of her wrists. Do not resist. You can't lie in bed all day. After 5 minutes of struggle, the girls finally lower Rosen to the floor. They take things off her. The blonde tries to object. Wait! No one listens to that girl. Some time passes. The blonde is already in a warm bath. The girl presses her knees to her chest. She feels safe in this position. The maids circle around Rosen. One girl scrapes the dirt off the blonde's skin. The second prepares a white towel for Erzen, and the third washes the foam off her feet. The girl looks at the flowers. Little by little, she remembers what happened to her yesterday. The old captain, says Rosen in his mind, invited me to dinner as a thank you. I didn't like Ian's reaction. The blonde continues talking to herself, so I agreed to make him angry. Then they brought me to these czar's dungeons. Rosen exhales. That's how it was. The blonde looks at her clean hand. And I can't remember how long ago I took a bath last time. Did the captain send these people? The blonde's thoughts are interrupted by one of the maids. By the way, Rosen, I have a question. Are you really a witch? Yeah, looks like these girls are no stranger to tact. But Rosen doesn't take offense to the question. She's used to it. The maids hurry to apologize to the blonde. It's just that the lady was bragging about meeting a witch. Rosen smiles. Kids often take everything at face value. The maids agree with this. It's true, the lady is still such a naive and sweet child. The girls ask if Rosen has enough. Maybe you should add hot water. Rosen shuddered and began to wave his hands. No, all right. Steam appears in the room. The maids say to Rosen, Sweetheart, well, just a little more. It will definitely change your tiredness. The captain gave us clear instructions. The girl says that everything suits her. The more it is in hot water, the more it feels the cold wind. Sadness appears in Rosen's eyes. She does not want to get used to this heat. The girl takes a lump of foam in her palm and starts blowing on it. Such warmth has always been just a luxury. An image of Ian appears in the girl's imagination. But not Ian the commander, but Ian the pilot. In the past, the girl adored him. But now everything has changed. Rosen is no longer the naive little girl who dreamed of even touching Connor's palm. Now she will not throw herself into his arms to please him. There will be no way. The girl waves her hand, throwing off the remains of the foam. The blonde lowers her eyes. Yes, it will be difficult for her to forget Ian the pilot. But she has to do it. Otherwise, the whole life will suffer. The blonde shakes her head to the side. She is already sick of this bath. The girl is looking forward to the arrival of the maids. She is almost falling asleep. The conversation that takes place behind the bathroom door revives the girl. She hears the voices of the maids. This is not quite normal. Someone enters the bathroom. The blonde sees a shadow behind the fence. The maids try to stop the uninvited guest. What are you? You can't go there. This guest is Henry. The man says that he himself does not want to go to the girl who is washing, but it is his duty to watch over her. The maids convince Henry that there are enough of them here. The blonde says, This is Sir Connor's order. I was left with no choice. The maids want to say something, but do not have time to do so. Rosen intervenes in the conversation. The girl had already got out of the warm bath. She is now standing in front of Henry, covering herself with a white towel. Do you have something to tell me? Everyone immediately freezes in place. The maids hurry to cover the almost naked girl. The blonde covers his face with his hand. Rosen! What are you producing? He exclaims. The man points his finger at himself. You know I'm a man, right? He feels awkward. What can you say about Rosen? The girl, without a hint of shyness in her voice, asks Henry, Well, what about being a man? The blonde frowns and mutters something under his breath. After a few seconds, the man turns to the maids. Could you please leave us alone? The girls are shocked. Just a minute, Henry adds. He says he has something confidential to tell Rosen. The steam in the bathroom begins to settle little by little. The maids ask Henry to at least wait until the girl gets dressed. The man does not back down. Don't get me wrong, it's just that Sir Connor ordered me to give it to her at once. The maids look at each other. They move away from the barricade, letting Henry go ahead. The blonde immediately pounces on the man. "What's wrong with you? He came from nowhere and also kicked out decent people." "What now?" asks Rosen defiantly. "Will you arrange a personal interrogation for me?" The man says angrily, "What kind of interrogation? You are naked. Do I look like some sort of pervert?" The girl smiles disdainfully. "Well, in the current situation, who are you if not a pervert?" The blonde is embarrassed again. Rosen will prove him someday. He takes a step towards the girl. "Stay where you are. I'll leave as soon as I say something." Rosen's eyes widen. She thought that Henry would leave her. The girl does not really want to talk to the fair-haired man in the towel. Rosen climbs into the bathroom. "You're a really bad liar," says the girl. "I'd even say a terrible one." Henry almost choked with indignation. "Well, what?" "Think for yourself," explains Rosen. "Why would Sir Connor send his lieutenant to me while I'm in the bath?" The man is silent. The blonde's eyes twinkle and she smiles widely. "You came here because you personally needed to tell me something. This is a secret conversation." Hot water drips from Rosen's hand. The girl continues. "Your commander could well have ordered to wait for me at the door, but to burst in like that." The blonde raises his eyebrows. "Sir Connor certainly wouldn't order you to come inside," concludes the blonde. "So tell the truth," she asks. The man understands that Rosen sees right through him. There is no point in hiding something from her. The man clears his throat. "It's about Layla." The girl rests her elbow on the edge of the bathtub. "Ah, Lila, you're sorry already, Yassil, but you're really behaving badly, Henry Revile." Surprisingly, the man agrees. The blonde decides not to torture her husband anymore. "Mala okay?" Rosen asks. The man happily replies that the doctor examined Lila that night. Everything is fine with the child. Rosen is very glad that the little girl is doing well. But something was not the norm. Not with Layla. With Henry. The blonde can't believe that this man was flying the plane. "Are you really a pilot?" The girl does not hold back. The man answers that he destroyed more than 50 enemy planes. "Then why are you so scary?" asks the blonde. The man is silent for several minutes. He wonders if he should tell Rosen the real reason for his behavior. In the end, the blonde decides to tell everything as it is. "I had an older sister," Henry says with difficulty, "and there was also a brother-in-law. Layla is their daughter. They were a very happy family." The man asks Rosen if she knows about the bombing in Rio Reton. The girl lowers her eyes. Of course. Memories of that city hurt her. The blonde also notices that Henry is talking about his sister and brother-in-law in the past tense, so something happened to them. The blonde asks the second question. "Were you there that day?" "No," answers the blonde, "I couldn't be there. Because that day I made my first escape. I learned about what happened only when I had already arrived at Al-Kafiz." The girl had heard from someone that Riraritan had disappeared. Of course, she felt sorry for all the people who were in the city on that terrible day. Their lives were taken by enemy bombs. But the blonde couldn't do anything about it. So later she began to treat the tragedy of Riraritan a little more calmly. Blonde says, "My sister was there. And Layla," he adds. "She was a newborn baby then." Rosen tries not to look at Henry. It is difficult for her to listen to her husband. His words touch the still unhealed wounds in the blonde's soul. The girl recalls Riraritan again. It was quite a big city. How could it just disappear? The blonde crosses his arms over his chest. "You know what's funny? I had the opportunity to prevent it. But even though I knew for sure that my sister and Lila were there," the man says that he could not stop the attack. The silence in the bath is pressing on both Rosen and Henry. The blonde tries to convince herself that Riraritan's disappearance does not concern her. What does she care if this city is gone or not? But the man's story for some reason does not leave the blonde indifferent. Rosen cautiously asks him, "Yes. Why couldn't he?" Henry clutches his shirt sleeve. "That day, during the flight, we spotted an enemy squadron." The man mentally returns to the past. The sky of the Empire. Henry spots enemy planes. The man calls out to Connor, "Grandpa, sir, they are not 1 or 2, not even 3. We can't handle that many." Some planes change their route. Henry yells, "They're splitting up. Some are headed for Malona and others to Riraritan." Connor's eyes widen. Now he must make an important choice: protect the capital of the Milan Empire or the hometown of the Raya-written pilots. Connor has to think fast because time is running out. Finally, the man says, "Henry, we will protect Malone." So Raya-written found itself under the fire of enemy planes, completely without protection. Henry snaps back to reality. He made the right choice. I don't hold a grudge against him for that. It was inevitable. Sir Connor really could not have done otherwise. The fair-haired man scratches his neck. After the end of the war, I could not sit in the cockpit of the plane. I've changed a lot, you're right. Now I can no longer call myself a pilot. But Lila's here. He changes the subject. She's alive and well, so everything's fine. Rosen looks at the man in silence. Now she understands the reasons for his strange behavior. After a few minutes of silence, the girl asks the fair-haired man, "Did you hate me for the fact that I, a criminal from Raya-Written, survived while your sister died?" Drops of water flow on the floor. Steam in the bathroom is becoming less and less. Right. Henry sighs. It seems that he is ashamed of his behavior, but the blonde understands him. She lowers her eyes and says, "Yes, it deserves to be hated. Innocence should not die. You can continue to hate me, all right? People always need a hero to admire and a witch to blame for the sins of all mankind. It's unfair but very convenient." Henry raises his eyebrows and says loudly that he came to apologize. "For what?" Rosen asks indifferently. "For getting you and showing me sea monsters," the man says quietly. The girl is not surprised that the demonstration of the monster's bloodthirstiness was Henry's idea. He says, "In any case, Layla would have been hurt if it weren't for you." The man thanks the blonde for saving his niece. The girl looks at Henry with wide eyes. Henry was able to overcome his pride and hatred. It deserves respect. Meanwhile, the maids excitedly whisper to each other in the corridor, "Surely it was worth leaving them alone." On the other hand, it's Sir Connor's orders. Someone is approaching the girls. One of the maids thinks they should go into the bathroom after all and see if everything is okay. Her friend hears footsteps and turns her head to the side. "Sir Connor!" she exclaims. Today, Ian is dressed quite simply and at the same time elegantly. Light gray trousers and a perfectly pressed white shirt. Henry is standing by the fence. He waits for the girl to change. Rosen casts a mischievous look at the man. "Yes, you came to me empty-handed?" The man gets lost. Thank you very much. Don't spoil the atmosphere with your tricks." Rosen says that she is not joking. The girl really expects more than just verbal thanks. Rosen snaps his fingers. "Just a thank you? You need to prove your sincerity." The blonde smiles and sparkles with blue eyes. Henry is surprised. He does not understand what this girl wants from him. "Money," suggests the fair-haired man. "I can pay you. But what are you going to do with this money? Be more flexible. You can give me something else, huh?" The girl points her finger at the bunch of keys on the man's belt. Henry shivers. He says that under no circumstances will he give the blonde the keys. He can't do that because there is one problem. "The fact that I'm a prisoner?" Rosen asks, looking the angry man in the eyes. "Do you really think I killed someone?" she asks. "What if I didn't kill him? Or let's say I endured bullying for a long time, but one day I couldn't help myself and took revenge." Henry's eyes widened. There is meaning in the blonde's words, but the man does not want to admit it. Rosen continues to press. "What if I had a reason to kill?" Henry covers his ears with his hands and starts shouting. "I can't hear you. I cannot hear you. I don't hear. Don't screw my head with all kinds of abomination. You think I'm an easy target?" The blonde replies that she never lies. The blonde says that no one will believe it, hinting at her demand for a reward. "You came yourself," Rosen says loudly. She hints that if Henry hadn't thanked her, she wouldn't have asked for anything. The blonde snorts and glares at Rosen, hoping that she will stop blaming him for everything. The girl directs her gaze to the window. Okay, as you said, I'd better forget about the keys. I have already perfectly understood that I cannot survive on a special boat." The blonde, holding the towel with her fingers, says, "Then what about this one? Come closer." She pulls the man by the sleeve of his shirt. "I don't bite, so go now." Henry has no choice but to listen to the blonde. He goes behind the fence. The blonde says warily, "What are you up to again?" The girl says that it's nothing, just a small request. Connor is still standing outside the bathroom door. The man hears every word of the blonde and fair-haired. The commander is tense. When Henry gets too close to the blonde, the dark-haired man quickly opens the door. Blonde and Rosen immediately turn their heads to the door. Connor grits his teeth. What are you making? Sir Connor, how are you? The fair-haired man looks scared. The commander coldly says, Henry. The man looks into his subject's eyes, hoping that he will not lie to him. I asked, what the hell are you doing? Answer immediately. Henry tries to say something, and well, it's not what you think. The dark-haired one stares at the blonde. He doesn't say anything to her yet. The girl is also silent. She understands that if she says something to her husband now, she can get into trouble. Better wait, says the blonde in her mind. The commander continues to question Henry. You should give me a convincing explanation right now. The blonde tries to smile. I said Walker, mutters the fair-haired man. The commander realizes that Henry is screwing up, and Connor doesn't like it very much. Get out now. The blonde falls to the floor. He is shocked that the commander is angry with him and not with the blonde. She called him. He just wanted to apologize. But Henry does not dare to contradict the commander. He quickly leaves the room. The maids follow him. Connor finally turns his attention to Rosen. He slowly approaches the blonde. Rosen Howos. Sit down for a while. He hands the girl another towel. The girl hesitates. What? But the blonde does not contradict Connor. She wraps herself in a huge white towel and sits on a small ottoman, waiting for what the commander will say to her. Connor watches her like a hawk. The girl has a lot of questions in her head. How? What kind of old man? Why? What are you going to tell me? Why did you come at all? The dark-haired man is silent. The girl does not understand how much longer he will wait. This starts to annoy the blonde. But she doesn't say anything, just in case. Connor crosses his arms over his chest and sighs. Then he puts his hand to his forehead. It is clear that the man does not know how to start a conversation. The bathtub is so quiet that you can hear the drops pattering on the floor. The dark-haired man wipes the sweat from his forehead. Finally, he asks, Henry, did something to you against your will? The blonde stares at the man in surprise. She doesn't understand what Connor is talking about. The man explains, I'm asking, did he try to force you? The blonde opens her eyes wide in surprise. A second later, she exclaims indignantly, No! But the man is not far behind. Did he touch your body without permission? No! What are you even saying? Says the blonde. The dark-haired man looks at her clean face. You can tell me. If you want, I will change the supervisor for you. I won't let anyone get close to you. The girl squeezes the towel with warm fingers. Wait, isn't he your lieutenant? The dark-haired man calmly replies, If he did something to you, then not. The blonde tells Connor that he forgot something. I'm the witch of Al-Kafeza, she says, and Henry's a hero just like you. He's on your side, you know. Dark-haired asks what this is for. The girl stares at him in surprise. Is the truth not getting to Connor? But he does not give the impression of a stupid person. The girl raises her eyebrows and smiles slyly. You don't even trust your subjects? How did you get through the war? How did you lead people you didn't trust? I really hate that kind of thing, says the blonde. Connor purses his lips. People are unpredictable. Even if he's a good subject, that doesn't mean he's perfect. The dark-haired man glared at the girl. He decides to return to the original topic of conversation. So nothing really happened? The blonde says in her mind, I'd better clear up this misunderstanding somehow, otherwise I'm somehow conscientious. She closes her eyes and sighs loudly. We were just chatting. The dark-haired one asks, about what? He wants to control everything, as always. About Lila. Rosen recalls Henry's embarrassment. He was just too shy to thank me in front of others. The girl waves her hand. I don't play with such children. Why should I do something if I'm not going to get anything out of it? Connor is surprised. Got it? What are you talking about? Rosen's eyes twinkle cheerfully. And what can a prisoner get from a warden, and vice versa is the same? It's like you just got it all wrong. Connor puts his hands on his sides. He finally understood what the blonde was getting at. Again, I don't understand how everyone keeps falling for your lies. The girl stands up and directs an innocent look at the man. But he does not react to these things. It is quite obvious that you are only looking for a good opportunity. The blonde lowers her eyes. Even now, you are seriously too obvious. The girl asks Connor if he wants to know the reason for her behavior. The dark-haired man sinks to the floor. He doesn't mind listening to the blonde. Rosen is pleased with this. She says that she does not deceive anyone and has not deceived anyone. They just pretend to be deceived, says the girl calmly. Connor looks at her with interest. What do you want to tell me? The girl remembers the papers with her case on Connor's desk. It doesn't matter if I know how to lie or not. Everyone only hears what they want to hear anyway. Actually, Rosen's voice is sad. Nobody needs the truth. All they need is an anti-hero, a witch who can be cursed with peace of mind. So? The blonde smiles with the corner of her mouth. I only say what I want to say. It doesn't matter what I say. My words will never change anything. Connor looks at Rosen. Her words make the man think. That girl does not give him time to think. One thing is clear for sure: you are a real hero. The blonde's smile becomes encouraging. The commander opens his eyes in surprise. Rosen continues. You have a strong sense of justice. You take care of some prisoner like me. Connor rolls up his shirt sleeve and lets out a loud sigh. The girl looks into the dark-haired man's eyes, trying to understand what he is thinking about now. The man touches a strand of his hair with his hand and says wearily, So you also consider me a hero? The commander also bears the burden of public opinion. The blonde twinkles her eyes. And what? Is it any wonder that someone like me can admire a hero? Connor lowers his head and closes his eyes. But the girl again does not let him finish. I liked you too, you know. The dark-haired man shuddered. He can't believe that the witch from Al-Kafiz was in awe of him. Rosen continues. I too was a citizen of the Empire, collecting your photos that were constantly falling from airplanes. I will say more. I didn't just collect them, I collected them. The man is surprised. Did you collect my photos? And what is this? Asks Rosen naively. You yourself should know. Know what? Yes, Connor is not as smart as he seems. The girl smiles. What a handsome man you are. The dark-haired man opens his eyes wide. Does she think I'm handsome? Connor says to himself. Rosen's face begins to sweat. She realizes that she just said nonsense. She feels embarrassed. A blush fills her cheeks. The blonde turns her head to the side. That's not the point. The blonde woman asks her husband to go out and call the maid. Connor gets up. The girl decides to make a last joke. I have to get dressed, right? After I get dressed, says the girl, I'll put on the shackles. So if you're worried about me killing the girls and running away, leave the door open. Connor takes a step to the side of the blonde. The girl directs her gaze towards the exit from the room. Just don't let your subject peek. I'm not going to tempt him. And that's just impolite. I think you understand. But Connor is in no hurry to leave the girl. Instead, he simply extends his hand to the blonde. Rosen stares in surprise at the commander's large palm. Now the girl does not understand what Connor is doing. The man says that he is not angry. What? Asks the blonde. Now all she can think about is how handsome Connor is. The man hangs his head in shame and says, I'm just confused. Why? Asks the blonde. The dark-haired man thinks about what to answer him. It's just, he finally says. As you said, I also think that you and I are similar in some ways. Rosen is surprised. Did I say that? Similar? In what place? Connor is not going to answer these questions. Firstly, he is not comfortable. Secondly, he simply does not know how. Instead, the man says, Let's go. Rosen reaches for his hand. The commander looks at the window. The sea is quite calm today. It's time for you to put something on. Your invited dinner is waiting, says the dark-haired man. The girl places her palm in Connor's. The girl tries to deny, That's why you had to go out, that I could. But the man does not want to listen to the blonde. He just pulls her on him. The girl is indignant. Stop! Connor slings Rosen over his shoulders, ignoring her protests. He is going to do what he has to do. Follow Rosen. The girl feels like a sack of potatoes. Connor is not very careful. The blonde smiles bitterly. I'm terribly sorry, but is it really necessary? Just call the girls, she prompts. Connor, not looking at Rosen, replies coldly, Why should I believe you? I know what you're up to. You shouldn't have obeyed the captain. Rosen shuffles her feet, demanding to be released immediately. Here, tell Henry to follow me. The dark-haired man says with sadness in his voice that he can't even trust Henry now. The man takes the fetters hated by Rosen in his hands. I will follow myself. Hands. Rosen has to carry out her husband's order. Connor says he wasn't very polite to the blonde. The girl is indignant. When did you ever behave normally with me? Connor continues his thoughts. It's as if he doesn't hear the girl. You saved the child. Besides, Lila Revel. Captain Henry and Lila, the dark-haired man lists. The only person whose heart hasn't melted for you yet is me. Rosen smiles. So you're scared? The girl's eyes twinkle. Are you afraid that I might run away? Don't you just have a gun? The commander confirms the blonde's assumption. Rosen shudders. I'm afraid of you, admits Connor, because we are somewhat alike. I'm afraid of you. Rosen stares at the dark-haired man in shock. She can't believe that a former pilot can be afraid of some weak girl. The man goes to the door and starts talking about something with the maids. Rosen ponders. But in what way are you afraid of me? I would like to know. You have all the control. Bilyavka frowns. Only I need to be afraid in this situation. I am a prisoner and you are a warden. I am an exile and you are a hero. You have unlimited power, Connor. Commander's office. A dark-haired man stands by the window with a cigarette in his hands. He thinks about what happened, about what he said to Roseanne Walker. The dark-haired man clenches his cigarette in his fingers, letting the noxious smoke escape through the window. Connor tries to understand why he is afraid of Rosen. And is he afraid of her at all? The man leans against the wall. If you think about it like that, it's already absurd that a prisoner was allocated a first-class cabin and washed like that. Connor raises his cigarette to his lips and draws in the bitter smoke. Though there shouldn't be any trouble, at least with Henry and the maids attached to it. And still, it's kind of suspicious. The man's gaze clings to the pile of papers on the table. The dark-haired man picks up several sheets of paper. Is this Henry's report? I read it, but under it. The dark-haired man carefully pushes the papers aside. Cigarette smoke settles directly on the table. But this does not bother the husband now. Amazingly, he says, the man was interested in the old worn notebook that was under the papers. I definitely ordered to burn it. The dark-haired man takes a puff. Any problems on the way? He unfolds the notebook. A pile of newspaper clippings already falling away, names circled with a red marker. A man looks through a magazine. The Witch of Al-Kafezu, Roseanne Walker, Escape Roseanne Walker, The Orphan of Rioriten. The dark-haired man says displeasedly, when did the notebook get so thick? At first, gathering information about Roseanne Walker was just fun for the strict commander, a hobby with which he tried to kill time. After the war, in a huge estate, a man had the same dream every night, a nightmare in which he and the plane went to the bottom of the black waters. Then the man thought that his condition was not so serious. He sat on the bed for hours and tried to regain consciousness. He did not tell anyone about his feelings. The dark-haired man broke into a cold sweat and calmed himself down. He did everything he could so that no one would find out about his nightmares. All because he is a symbol of victory. When the dark-haired man woke up from such a nightmare, he could no longer fall asleep again. And so, every time this happened, the man grabbed the newspaper. He needed to fill his head with meaningless words. As he ran his eyes over the articles again, his eye caught the word Rioriten. A city turned into ruins because of his choice. The city that the man left to be torn apart by enemy planes. However, the article the man saw that night did not have his name on it. The dark-haired man was immediately interested. He was replaced by a certain witch, an outcast, a criminal who replaced the heroic Ian Connor, a witch created by the media, the leadership, and the military. Roseanne Hawos. That was the name of the most famous fugitive of the Empire, a blonde with blue eyes. This article made the dark-haired man think. Over his heroism, over Roseanne's life, over everything. He sat at the table for a long time, rereading the newspaper about the witch several times. The man was squinting at Roseanne's photo. After that day, the man seemed to be under a spell. As if obsessed, he began to search for any mention of Roseanne Hawos. This girl seems to have become a part of the essence, Ian Connor. The other side of the coin. The same desperate loser. Her face did not leave the dark-haired man's head. However, although these two were equally unlucky, how come the world perceived them completely differently? Why Rosen was forever dragged around the courts, and Ian was showered with flower petals. When Rosen was convicted of murder, she was still very young and very beautiful. Blonde hair gathered in a neat but not slicked back tail. Blue eyes that looked straight into the soul. Ian had enough articles to feel this blonde's gaze on him. He was mesmerized by the story of this girl, as if he had dissolved into her life. But the main question that the man asked himself not every day was why Rosen is an evil witch, and he, Ian Connor, is a hero who saved the country from a terrible death. Rosen killed one person and Connor nearly 16,000. Why is the blonde's sin heavier than his sin? The dark-haired man didn't know, so he just started cutting Rosen's photo out of the newspapers. And if the problem was only that, the dark-haired man hunted every news about the girl and mentally asked her to run away. Run as far as possible from here. He didn't want her caught. He wanted her to survive. Ian admitted this to himself every time he circled the witch's first and last name in the newspapers with a bright red marker. The man became addicted to Rosen Walker. The dark-haired man didn't value Rosen so much because he assumed her innocence or anything. No, just the witch from Alcafez became the only person he managed to save. Connor puts the magazine aside. Who would have thought, says the dark-haired man in his mind, that the people's favorite, the sinless hero of the war, has already become obsessed, that he is running after the prisoner. The man crosses his arms over his chest and leans back in his comfortable chair. The man is going to take a nap if he can. If not, just put your thoughts in order. But his peace is disturbed by the sound of the door opening. A little girl wearing cute blue shoes peeks into the cabin. "Ian!" she exclaims. The man immediately opens his eyes. "Lila!" In the hands of the little girl is a pile of various soft toys. She stops at the door of the room. "Excuse me, may I come in?" "Of course," answers the dark-haired man. Layla immediately runs to her uncle. "What it is?" The man is talking about a pile of toys that is about to fall apart. "I want to give Rosen a present tonight," says the little one, "but I don't know what she likes." It can be seen that the girl wants to please the blonde and choose the best toy for her. "And why did you bring all this to me?" Ian asks. The child puts the toys on the commander's table and smiles. "I want you to choose. You know Rosen very well." "I?" The dark-haired man is surprised. A magazine about Roseanne Walker attracts the child's attention. "And this is him!" The girl points her finger at the notebook. "It's yours, isn't it?" Mala says, "Last time the maid wanted to burn it, but I prevented it. The magazine was yours, that's why I returned it to you." The dark-haired man is shocked. That's why this thing is still on his desk. Lila decided to save the commander's thing. The dark-haired one asks the child how she found out. "Well," Lila directs an innocent blue-eyed look at her uncle. "Is it cool to pick up everything with Rosen now?" The girl explains that she wanted to collect an album of articles about Rosen, so she was looking for photos of the blonde. But all the images were already cut out. Ian hides his face in his hands. He asks Lila, "Come to me." The girl climbs on the man's lap. He reminds himself that he needs to talk to the little girl as gently as possible. He asks Lila if she told anyone about the magazine. "No, not even Uncle," the little one answers. Connor asks the child not to tell anyone about this ever. The girl opens her eyes wide. "Could you be in trouble?" she guesses. "Yeah," sighs Ian. "If anyone finds out. She is a prisoner, and I am obliged to escort prisoners." The girl promises not to tell anyone that her uncle is collecting articles about Rosen. Connor thanks her for that. "But I don't think you need to worry," says the little one. "I always thought you hated Rosen." "I guess everyone thinks so?" she asks. The man lowers his head and says tiredly, "Lila, I don't hate prisoners. I'm just doing my job. I shouldn't have these feelings for them." The dark-haired man runs his hand over the child's cheek. "Moreover, she saved you. Even if I was rude before, it won't happen again." So, another question from Lila. "Do you like Rosen?" Ian freezes in place. "Neither," he finally answers. But it seems the man is lying. The girl asks if she can like Rosen then. Connor flinches. "Lila Rosenhaus." But the child does not let him finish. "I know. She killed someone, right? But she also saved me, right?" Connor glances at a vase of some exotic plant on the windowsill. Well, it turns out that it is. "So, thinks the little girl. One good thing was added to one bad thing. The little girl squints sweetly. So now it's all even, right? So I can like her now, right? The man smiles with the corner of his mouth and agrees with the girl. Lila, despite Connor's conviction that Rosen will return to prison, asks him to help choose a toy for the blonde. Connor sighs and chooses a bear. But Mala is not far behind. She says she has something else for the commander. The dark-haired man wonders, "For me?" Lila puts something in the palm of the dark-haired man. Connor's eyes widen when he sees what it is. "Lucky coin," Lila says enthusiastically. "If you keep her, she will bring you luck." The girl also says, "I think you need her more. You don't sleep well all the time." Connor asks Lila where she got that thing. Mala just smiles. It seems that she is afraid that the commander will scold her when he finds out who gave her a coin. But Connor himself guesses, "I knew it. She went to Rosen." The man wants to shout at the little one, but restrains himself and only sighs deeply. "You have to keep yourself in your hands." He asks Lila not to take anything from the blonde anymore. Tears appear in the eyes of the girl. She is upset. Connor puts his hand on the child's shoulder and says to himself, "Even if Rosen isn't a witch, it's better to play it safe." The man drops a coin into a glass tumbler on his desk and promises Lily to keep it safe. "It will be too shameful to throw her away," he says to himself. The dark-haired man looks at the bookcase and tells the girl that she should go back to her place because dinner will start soon. "Exactly," remembers the little girl. "You don't know where Uncle is?" Connor says that Henry is currently following Rosen Howes. She has to take a bath. Lila, who is already standing at the door, directs a surprised look at the man. "But I was passing by recently." Connor's eyes widen. He is afraid that Lila will say something terrible now. So it is. "He wasn't at the bathroom door," concludes the little one. The dark-haired man remembers Rosen's words about how hard life was for her, about how she dealt with the guards. The man jumps up. "No, no," he repeats as if possessed. "This could not happen." After a few seconds, the man finds himself at the bathroom door. He sees the maid. But Connor doesn't listen. It should be said that he looks festive. His black hair is combed back, incredibly beautiful black suit. Gray to match the color of the eyes. A tie.